Mortgage rates spent most of this past week at around 7.75% for the 30-year fixed, best case scenario, with most lenders in the mid-8s. On top of that, this is the time of year when Portland's market typically starts to slow down. Was that a recipe for disaster for Portland Metro real estate? Well, let's take a look at this week's numbers and trends and find out. At first glance, the average sale price looks like it took a tumble versus the previous week's number, and well, it kind of did. It's down 3% versus the previous week, which is almost $20,000 less. However, we saw pretty much the same drop last year at this time, so compared to last year's number, we're still up by 0.3%. Not a lot, but I'll take it. And we're continuing with that trend of treading water that we've been seeing with the average sale price recently. The supply of homes available for buyers to choose from was up just a smidge by 0.4% versus the previous week. That brings us to where our comparison is to last year, where we now have 0.75%, so less than 1%, more homes to choose from than we did last year at this time. So more treading water. The number of homes new to the for sale market was down, but we were kind of expecting that given the time of year. Price reductions were up, not a surprise there with current interest rates and the resulting affordability challenges that buyers are facing. Not a surprise that sellers had to do some discounting in order to secure a contract. Buyer demand was down from the previous week. The number of new purchase agreements entered into by buyers and sellers came in at 431 compared to last week's 481. That feels like a normal decline for this time of year. However, when we look at last year's number of 529, I think that we can see the difference that interest rates are having on our buyer activity. I mentioned that rates have been coming in somewhere between 7.75% and 8.5% depending on the lender. I got these numbers from Kate Dickman at Wells Fargo, and here you can see that last October, the average interest rate for the 30-year fixed from Freddie Mac's survey of lenders was 6.9%. That's a big difference from what we have today. But even with a difference like that, folks are still transacting. Like we said in the past, it's those folks who need to transact right now, plus those first-time home buyers who are seeing opportunity where they haven't seen opportunity in our recent frenzy years. No real change in the number of bank-owned homes and pre-foreclosure homes on the open market. And if you remember, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that there was a slight uptick in the number of notices of default, which is that first step in the foreclosure process. Well, that uptick didn't last. In fact, last week I only saw 6 notices of default, which is an even lower number than the really low numbers we've been seeing so far this year. Residential interest rates play a really big part in where our market is headed, and unfortunately I've got no real reliable insight on where rates are headed. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is one of our best indicators of where the rates are headed, and unfortunately the yield has been all over the place these last several days. We started this week with kind of a high number, but on Monday and Tuesday that number started to recede a bit, and then on Wednesday they went back up and wiped out all of the reductions we saw on Monday and Tuesday. Then on Thursday they receded again, so the numbers for the 10-year Treasury are just all over the place. That being said, unless something seriously changes on Friday, interest rates will probably remain in the upper 7s and low 8s, at least for now. So you'll just have to join me next week for the latest on our real estate market. Be sure to follow this channel if you haven't already, and hit that little bell icon to make sure you don't miss any of our updates. As always, I would love a like, a thumbs up, and if you know of someone who could use a little bit of insight, please share this video with them. Have a great weekend, and I will see you here next week.